Greeting, guys. How are you? Hope everybody's feeling okay. I'm a little bit sick, so I apologize in advance if I'm. Never mind. So let's start. We had a very intense week in Jerusalem in terms of terror attacks. Four Israelis was murdered the last week. Two kids, 6 years old, 8 years old, a police officer, and another young guy in the age of 20. One terror attack was uh, a Palestinian living in East Jerusalem drove a car into like a bus station and killed three, two kids and the young guy age of 20, and another stabbing event in another checkpoint that led to a shooting over there. Died a police officer from the border patrol. I want to take this opportunity to talk about Jerusalem, especially East Jerusalem, and talk about how Hamas, the terror organization, which is located mainly in the south in Gaza, not very strong in the West Bank, made in East Jerusalem as his front base for terror attack against Israelis or Jews. A little bit background. In 48, Independence Day, Independence War, the Jordanian occupied East Jerusalem. At that time, in the old city of Jerusalem, as you guys know it today, the Jewish quarter was full with Jews, which fled, ran away once the Jordanian came. And actually, the Jordanian ruled East Jerusalem all the way to 67, the Six Days War. 6 Days War, June 67, the army occupied, Israeli army, not occupied, sorry, took back East Jerusalem and the old city. A little bit later, the Israeli government made a decision, which is not very important, that it's a declaration that Jerusalem is united. And at that time, a status quo was agreed, which is till today. And he said the status quo was regarding the Temple Mount and the holy, religious and holy places in the Temple Mount. June 1980, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, um, passed a law that says it's a basic law, by the way. It's called the Jerusalem Law, which is actually that the Israeli parliament is declaring that Jerusalem is united and for the end of days capital of Israel. It's very important to say that when we had a peace agreement in 1994 with Jordan, one of the terms in the agreement with them was they withdraw from all the claims they have regarding Jerusalem. And like they don't need any sovereignty and etc etc, and the border was determined where it is today, as you know, like the Jordan Valley. Okay, regarding the holy places, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, I hope I pronounced it right. I apologize to all my Catholic or non-Catholic friends. I don't have any Catholic friends, but I apologize for that if I pronounce it right. The Temple Mountain will be handed to the Muslims, ruled by the Jordanian Waqf, and Jews can visit the Temple Mountain, but without making any religious activities. And the Western Wall, as you guys know, will be in Israeli control. Uh, and that was like the status quo that is still going till today. Honestly, the I don't know how many, like 2, 3, 4 miles square, 2 miles square even. Imagine there's like it's the most intense place in the world. You have the third holy place for the Muslim world, the Temple Mountain. You have, I think, the second place important to the Catholic world, that church I just mentioned, and the first holy place for the Jews, the Western Wall. And it's all into a square mile, very complicated. Every movement, every minister that goes to the Temple Mount, crazy. So that's what we have. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna drink. It's not polite to drink, but because I have a throat and I want to be able to keep on speaking, I'm drinking tea. It's not coffee. So thank you for understanding. Now let's talk about East Jerusalem. Um, East Jerusalem is it's a very unique place. It combines from couple of big neighborhoods and couple of refugee camps, which actually located what we call the Big Jerusalem. And just to give you like example, or not example, details. Jerusalem is the biggest city in Israel in terms of population. Jerusalem has almost 1 million people live in what we call Jerusalem. Tel Aviv, which everybody knows it's a big city, has like 400K. And Jerusalem is almost 1 million. The Jews are something around 570,000 people. The Muslims, the Arab, the Palestinians are 360,000. And Christians, there is like 13,000 Christians living in East Jerusalem. By the way, an important note, from the 6 Days War all the way to 2023, we see every year less and less and less Jews living in Jerusalem, meaning if the Jews are the majority, okay, but it's slowly, very slowly, going down regarding Jews and going up regarding the Muslim. There isn't any mixed neighborhood in Jerusalem. I mean, there isn't any like a mixed Arab and Jews neighborhood in Jerusalem, not like in other places. In Israel, for instance, in Lod, it's like next to Ben Gurion Airport. It's the airport that everybody come and getting grilled by the immigration. And Akko, which is another city in the north, they are mixed. In Jerusalem, no, like the Jews are located in the west side of the city, and the Palestinians, Muslims, and Christians, Palestinians live in the east side of the city. By the way, the west side is much more advanced in terms of infrastructure and facilities, not like the east side. Even education, the east side of Jerusalem is learning by the Palestinian, like the Palestinian Authority education program, which is crazy. Think about it. But that's what's happening. And that means that the incitement that is exists in that education system is very, very big. They can, like, if you go to a East Side school, you can choose to learn by, it's called the Israeli program, but usually they decide not to do it. There is a wall. I don't know if you guys, probably some of you guys, um, been to Jerusalem and saw the wall. It's a very long one. It's 202 kilometers of a wall, which actually what they did, it's when they built it like in the 2004, in the or 2002, it was like in the midst of the second Intifada, big terror attacks against Israel. What they tried to do is to prevent from terrorists from the West Bank just to walk to Jerusalem easily and blow them themselves in restaurants and in coffee shops, and horrible terror attacks that happened. Today we have 13 checkpoints between Jerusalem and the West Bank. The majority of the international community doesn't recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Why? I don't know. Actually, I don't care. But it is. And that's the reason they don't have embassies in Jerusalem. I think I mentioned it in our last report. Okay, let's talk about which status the East Jerusalem, that people that live in East Jerusalem has. So the East Jerusalem are residents, not citizens. Why? Once we took back the area, we offered them to be citizen. They decided not to do it, their own reason. By the way, to be a resident or a citizen in Israel, it doesn't matter at all, or a lot, not at all, but it doesn't. It's not a big deal. There's three main differences between being a resident and a citizen. One, if you are a resident, you cannot vote to the Knesset, and you cannot be elected to the Knesset. Meaning, if you are a Palestinian from East Jerusalem, and you would like to be the next prime minister in Israel, you cannot. Second, you cannot have Israeli passport. You will have Israeli ID or an Israeli driving license or everything, but you cannot have an Israeli passport, meaning you can keep your own passport. In that case, it's Jordanian passport. Take, for instance, an American that is a resident in Israel. He is like eating the cake and leaving it as it is. Why? Because he has Israeli ID and all the benefits or non-benefits that I have in terms of social security, health system. We will have a show on the health system. It's very advanced in Israel, and whatever you want. But he can still have his American passport, which is much more better than the Israeli passport. Believe me, from experience, gives you a right to travel much more places easily than the Israeli passport. There is another. You can apply after being a resident for a couple of years to be a citizen, but if you go abroad and live a couple of years, you cannot. Who cares? Okay. Hamas. Let's go to Hamas. Remember, guys, Hamas, a Sunni terror organization from Gaza, mainly located in Gaza, said, okay, how do I fight Israel? So I have missiles. The Israelis develop Iron Dome. Okay, I have tunnels. I dig tunnels, tons of them. The Israeli found it and developed a technology, a very unique one, to discover the tunnels. I have like, so actually I cannot do nothing. I cannot hurt the Israelis. That's one narrative, now one strategic narrative Hamas has. Second one, he wants to occupy by mind the West Bank. West Bank, you have Palestinian security services, which are most of the time are in cooperation with Israel, and so Hamas militarily is not strong in the West Bank. He's strong ideologically, religiously, but not militarily. So Hamas said, you know what? I'm gonna build a new narrative. What's the narrative? I am the defender. I am Hamas, Gaza. I am the defender of Jerusalem, especially the Temple Mount. So every time, for instance, a minister wants to go to the Temple Mountain, Hamas say, yeah, if he will go, we will shoot missiles. Like the last war, the wall keeper that was with Gaza started because Hamas shoot missiles towards Jerusalem. So Hamas, one thing is, as a narrative, you say, I'm the defender of Jerusalem. It gives him credit in his world. I can understand that. Probably do the same if I was in his place. But another thing he's doing, he's saying, wait a minute, I have this huge group of 360,000 people, which are Palestinians, Muslims, carrying an Israeli ID. That means they can move freely in Israel. Like they can take their car and actually come to this beautiful studio if they want, and no one will stop them because they don't have to go through checkpoints. They live inside Israel. And those guys are 360,000 potential terrorists. The beautiful piece of it, I don't have to give them weapon. You know, in Israel, it's not like in other places in the US. Guns or not, you cannot buy them on, I don't know, in the market. Try to get a gun in Israel. You probably will get arrested for dreaming about it. But I don't need that. Take a knife kitchen and go butcher someone. Take your car, just take your car and drive into a couple of nice Jews waiting to a bus in a bus station in Friday. And then you kill 2 kids. That's very easy. Now, okay, not all the 360,000 are terrorists. Not the 99.9 are not. Okay, there are good people. All is good. At 1%. 1%. Remember the incitement we talked about? So Hamas is pouring fuel into it. So here we are with a nice startup of Hamas using the complicated situation of Jerusalem, which is nothing to do with security, by the way. It's religious, it's politics, it's everything, and using it to his benefit. Now Israel has a problem here. Why? When we are very strong, when the army is dealing with the situation. The army cannot deal with the situation of East Jerusalem. They are like Israeli civilians, citizens. It's not allowed by law. It's only the police. Now, in Israel, the police is not very strong. Not very strong. Like the army is very strong. The security services, we call the Shabak, which is our equivalent to the FBI, is very strong. But the police is not very, it's not like NYPD. I met once a group of NYPD, just heard the budget and what they have, so, ooh, you guys are, and no, in Israel, no, it's not. You don't see, when you see an Israeli police officer, he doesn't look like a football player, 2 meter high, no. They are very chubby. Whoa, I hope Israeli police is not watching this show. They will wait outside, give me a ticket. So, yeah. So how do you deal with that? You cannot take the army into East Jerusalem. You have to deal with it. So it's a problem. Let's see how Israel will deal with that. We are going now in 22 March. Ramadan started. It's a very big holiday for the Muslim world. As you guys know, it will end in April 20. It's almost a month. I have a nice racist joke, but I'm not allowed to tell it. By the way, if you guys, audience, which some of you probably watching this show, would like me to do a special corner of a racist joke every report, just tell me. Just put a comment. Yeah, do a racist joke, and I will do, because I have okay. So if you want a racist joke, just tell me. I have good racist jokes. Okay. I don't know if it's legal to tell racist jokes on YouTube. I don't know that, but let's see. Cool, guys. Shabbat shalom. I'm sorry, I'm not in my best today. I'm a little bit sick. I love you guys. Have a nice weekend. See you next week.
Hey guys, I want to remind you about our $5 a month giving campaign. If you want to have an impact on the unreached and unengaged of the world, if you want to see the gospel go forth into the 1040 window, it's as simple as giving $5 a month. We like to say you could give up a cup of coffee and change the Middle East. If you're interested in doing so, you can check out the link below. I believe it's faimission.org/donate or faistudios.org/donate. Thank you very much.